Well, okay, this is something that I've been wondering for quite a while, actually, is there's a mountain behind my house. Some days the top of the mountain is the place to go, and in other days the more feminine place is a place to go. So I've been wondering this for many years, actually, about how to make a routine about here on this time and here on this time, and I don't know how to begin, or I don't understand the scheme.
Well, I'm going to give you a clue based on a ceremonial circuit, or a ceremonial way of doing stuff, which I said that the number 1 to 13 talks about, for example, distance is a magnitude that talks about, for example, distance, height, temperature, age, intensity of something, and stuff like that. So when a Mayan and especially for Japan, that is also a very well respected. We always begin for looking for a spring. That must be always the first. The spring is number 1. So anytime that you have to do, let's say, like a peregrination, or to go to a sacred places, or this is also very important, to ascend in hierarchy and to ascend in the proper responsibility you hold as a spiritual guide. Number 1 is the first step. You have to go to a spring. In the spring, you have to do an offering, a ceremony, whichever you want. A ceremony could be seated, taking the socks, and let it feel the water and be thankful. A ceremony could be two long days fasting and and lighting the fire. And
let me stop you there for a second, because this is a mystery for outsiders like me, because we don't have this kind of tradition of ceremonies. It's very foreign. So
but let me tell you something let me make a remark about something. There's no fixed way of doing a ceremony, because as a fact the term ceremony is very heavy. It's like, why, right?
Yeah.
But ceremony is like, for example, an scholar ceremony of raising the flag and singing to the flag. That's another ceremony. Ceremony
Sure.
will be to drink your tea with your grandmother every morning. It's like a ceremony, a familiar ceremony to get reunited. So let's forget about the
heaviness.
The word.
Yeah.
Ceremonies. Yeah, Jim Morrison. The ceremony is about to begin.
Right. Yeah. There's a big gong, and I have to wear a costume and funny hat, and yeah.
Yeah, and you have to be pure and an instant.
Let me ask you a quick question first about covering your head with a hat.
Well, it depends. It depends on what you're going to do, because if you're a healer, for example, a healer in any way, we are not going to qualify anyone.
Yep.
To this garb.
I'm a healer.
But
I'm joking.
if you are going to attend someone, or to make a consultation of someone, whatever, it's not only a thing about your time or your preparation or your experience. It also could be the transfer of, let's say, emotions, consciousness, energy, whatever you want to call. But there's always something about that. In the case of the Mayans, we use the ceremonial handkerchiefs, big, small. There are too many in our world, or sometimes hats. It's to protect the bodily heat that you have to keep it in your head, in the head, especially in the upper part. is where the most heat is always dissolved, diluted. And the idea in the Mayan way is to preserve your own heat. To the highlands, that is very cold places. So the sute and the hat also helps to preserve the inner heat.
I have to stop you. That's very funny. The reason, just the idea that the reason we wear a hat is because it's cold. It's like, it's so simple. I like it.
Yeah, in reality, it's so simple. You have to preserve your own heat, own corporal heat. But also, there's an expelling of energy whenever you are confronted to big situations. Sometimes you feel the heat in the stomach, or you can feel it in the blood pressure in your heart. But what you cannot see is how your inner heat goes away from your head. So sometimes it's a way of protecting the self, protecting the inner heat that is surrounding the head and preserves the total bodily heat in all the body. So there's, for the beginning of everything, there's a practical way. That is that. In the lowlands, is mostly related with sweating and to preserve a good way of the balance between humidity and the inner heat. But also it can be seen as a way to protect yourself to preserve or to maintain an equilibrium in your inner heat. Obviously, not sometimes everything is so easy or so naive. So you can be exposed to let's say to something that really affects you, really something that really hits you. There's no way to do the proper ceremony because there's no orthodox or there's no fixed rules to do stuff. Just suppose that for any moment you begin to feel dizziness, or you begin to feel the impact or something, or maybe you are so lucky to experience some. You have to protect yourself, especially the bodily heat, and sometimes the integrity of your stomach, because that's another place, that's another brain in the stomach. So the heart and everything. So there are so many ways to do that. Another way to do it is to have a long hair. The long hair also protects you. It's another way to protect or to preserve the inner heat of the body. It's practical stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Sorry for the distraction. Back to the question of the numbers on the mountain.
Let me follow. So, well, a ceremony could be whatever you want, but it has to be honest. Sometimes people say, do it with your heart, but sometimes by doing with the heart, sometimes you do stupid. Is that dress in white and send flowers and I don't know, use the crystal skulls or whatever. Well,
look like a pirate. You look like a pirate, I think.
Yeah, sometimes. And sometimes, well, maybe you could be very honest, but you could not honest. You could be very naive about that, but it's something that has to be honest and has to be on. The honesty is with you, especially with you, because you can, for example, arrive to an spring and you don't know what to do, or you may say, "Oh, I have seen Mayans doing this big ceremony and praying long prayers. What can I do?" Well, there's no fixed way anyways. There's there must not be a barrier between...
that traditions, but let's say I arrive to a spring and it's number 1 day. Is there something that I should maybe ask the spring or talk to the spring or say to the spring specifically?
Well, let's talk about the spring, the cave, the upper part of a mountain, or for example, a big mountain or a small mountain. The thing that you have to be in communication with is the owner of the place. Because it's not going to be just like a spring. It's an entity. It's a consciousness. It's the consciousness. Because, for example, is that now we have to change the lexical way of or the way we use, especially the idiom, because it has been used spirits, it has been used souls, it has been used superstition. But when we arrive to a place, well, maybe we can use the term consciousness, not in the Hindu way, but in the way of that you acknowledge, you recognize, or you try to enter into communication and dialogue with the owner of the place, the consciousness that is placed in that place that has a unique and different feature than anything else. So we Mayans, we talk about them as owners, feminine or masculine owners of a place, and sometimes they have calendarical numbers. So that's the first step. You have to go to visit, knowing that there's an owner of this land, there's an spirit, there's a soul, if you want to say it. But I prefer the Quiche word ushlap, rushlapla, rahwala, the consciousness or the owner of the place that you are going to have to be in communication with, feminine or masculine. For example, if you go to an spring, well, immediately you are going to deal with a feminine consciousness, a feminine entity. So if you want to go, you can go, you can take the shoes and the socks and touch the water and be grateful. That's enough. That's your ceremony. If you don't know how to pray long hours of prayings, well, you can just be grateful for your life or whatever you have done, or to ask the water to release some of your old anger or something that you haven't been able to let it flow. Well, you can ask that consciousness to flow inside you and to help you to flow with time. You can use the metaphorical words. For example, for us Mayans, the idea of going to visit a place, a spring, that is number 1, a cave, that is number 6, at 13, that is, for example, the top part of a big volcano, number 11 or 12, that is the top place of big mountains, but not volcanoes, for example, is to go and recognize the owner of the place, talk to the owner of the place, and also, very important, offer something to the owner of the place. It's like, for example, that you and I, we said, well, guess what? We're going to be in New York for this festival of New Age arts.
Sounds great.
And these are ways New Age festival.
Sure, yeah.
And yes, you, Paul, and I were, yay, let's go to Soho or what.
Sure.
Yes, and later I'll tell you, I need to talk to you. And we said, where do we meet? Well, let's go to the fancy restaurant. Yes. Well, I have to offer you something. I have to offer you a drink, a tea, a shot, this expensive whiskey if I want this big favor or whatever. But for us, everything is an interchange.
I see.
So when you go to the owner of a place, any place, a spring, a cave, a top mountain, or a volcano top mountain, a canyon, that is number 7.
Wait, stop. A canyon is number 7?
Yeah, especially if it's big.
I see. Yeah, see, I got a
some
little...
of the canyons, the big canyons, they have water in the bottom.
Yep. Like a river.
So, yeah, a river. Yes.
How about
some of them are also, let's say, dried.
Yep.
A big, for example, there are places like these Devil's Rock in the USA. That is this big, massive stone. Those are number 12.
Why?
Is because they are big. Most of the times is one single piece of the same fabric as the same stone. Is the same stone.
Yeah.
But they are not volcanoes. They don't contain fire in the Do you know which stone I'm talking to? The one of the Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I don't know that one, but is it near Navajo in like Arizona or in Utah or something?
Utah. In a reservation, in a native reservation in the USA.
Where? Which part? In the Southwest?
In the it's called the Devil's Mountain. Let me remember. But first, follow
I think I've been there. I think.
See?
I think so.
Let me tell you. But first, don't forget this. They are mostly yeah, and it's called Devil's Tower.
Okay.
It's called Devil's Tower. Tower.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In Dakota.
In Dakota, yes.
Okay.
It's in close to it's in Wyoming.
Okay.
Well, National Park.
Yeah, I know there. I've been there.
Well, that is a number 12 because it's one single piece of a stone and it's a big mountain, but it's not a volcano and holds no fire. Massive, and usually, although there are extinct volcanoes, but they follow the same 13, but some of them has already been holding fire in the top. That is number 13.
I see.
Number 12 is like this one, and there are too many more. Like you can go and visit big formations of made of a stone. That is number 12. Number 11 is big mountains, but no one piece, or maybe not volcanoes.
Well, okay, sorry.
No. Follow.
Okay, so for example, this city that I live in is surrounded by mountains, and it's in a valley. And there's all kinds of different mountains. If I just go just to behind my house, I can be in the top of a mountain in maybe 30 minutes walking to the top. So it's a little bit far, but not so far. And so and I noticed this is very interesting. You said this a long time ago, is that the top of the mountain is very dry. And so has a masculine energy. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So which number number is this mountain?
11.
It's 11.
Should be an 11, yes. For and I'm saying
no. I'm just curious. Like
it should be a picture. More than sure. What it sounds like an 11,
sure.
Right? It's not a volcano, so it's not 13. It's not a big one piece of a stone. It's not a 12, but it's a big dry mountain. So for sure, it's an 11.
Very interesting. Okay, so then which one is a number 10?
There's no number 10 in the beginning of ascension, the water, beginning from water, that also has a connection with being born.
Right.
Also has that connection. Then you jump to what is called I think is basis in English, like for example, those mesas in Arizona, the mesas, remember?
Yeah.
That is not really mountains.
Yes.
Just an upper part.
Yep. Yeah, I know the ones.
Yeah, that's number 4.
Number 4, because it's dead, it's not a mountain?
It's not a mountain, but it's also a formation that is upper to the rest, and it is...
Number 4.
No, because... whenever you find that places and following the mesas, it's a high place, but it's plain. So sometimes those places are habitated or holds human presence or hold human
life. Okay.
Yes, houses.
Yeah.
It's a place. It's a place in which you can have a presence. Yes.
Okay. Well, the reason why I'm so curious is because I would like to be able to see something in nature and be able to read it to be able to have a guess? Maybe Nawal is number 4, or maybe the Nawal here is number. How can I learn to see the different Nawals, in nature, in mountains, in springs, etc. So,
well, this the first step that I'm telling you. All the springs are number 1.
sure.
No, all the caves, especially if they go high or deep.
I see. Okay. So if there's an inside river, it's number 9 shrine.
Mm-hmm.
And how about a dry shrine up the mountain? Is that also number 6?
A dry.
Cave. A dry cave. No river. No nothing.
Yeah, that's number 6.
It's also number 6. I see.
Yeah, that's number 6. If you find a river, then it's number 9.
I see.
Or there could be a river without there could be a river without let's say a cave, just an entrance inside a mountain or inside a valley.
The hidden river.
The hidden river, the hidden
Okay. This actually pertains to my Nawal, which is the number 3. Is there a place where I can see the number 3?
Well, number 3 in general is waterfalls.
Okay. Any waterfall?
Yeah, but actually all of the time is what happens is that there are too many different ways of a waterfall. But
Yes.
a waterfall is number 3.
Okay. Well, I have many.
It's not still a mountain, but sometimes are also mountains.
Number 3 could be a mountain.
Yeah.
Why?
No. Number 3 can also be. No, a waterfall could not necessarily be a mountain. Could be just like, for example, Niagara Falls, and they don't fall from a mountain.
Right.
But there are these horsetail in Venezuela that is a mountain. So it depends, but anyways, any waterfall is number 3.
Okay, I have another question. Also, just in the big river, but there's also a huge dam where there's a big waterfall.
Dam is number 4.
Number 4. I thought the waterfall from number 4 was the.
No.
5.
Number 3 is the waterfall.
Okay.
And the dam is number 4.
Okay. And what about?
In the sense, and not in the sense of a water, could be like this mesa, like the mesas, like basement, like small upper parts, or when using a mountain that is not that big but can hold human presence.
I see. So number 4 is something that can hold something.
Yeah, in this case, but following the water.
And so then if we see a mountain, a small rock or place, upper place that can hold people or life, then it could be a number 4.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I visit some of the Hopi mesas and everything. They could be a number 4.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. Yeah, well, I've been fascinated for this for many, many years about, like, I've read it sometime long ago that on the number 1 day, people go to the spring. And, what should I do with this information? I don't know. So I've been thinking about this in the back of my mind somewhere forever. And so it's, and looking around the forest and everywhere for maybe what is the number here or something like, in my own Nawal, what's number 3? I've always wondered. So the waterfall.
Waterfall is always number 3. And the place in which delta begins is also number 3.
A delta is when a river goes to the ocean?
Different directions.
So when the river breaks to different directions.
That's number 3, and it's the delta. But you have to go specifically to the place in which all the branches begin.
Break.
That is number 3.
I see. That's very powerful, actually. I could really look for that. And yeah, well, that's cool for me because I have.
Then you can post this as a podcast if you want. Because if you think that this is something that could help people, well, then let's do it. Number one is the spring, and it's mostly a water place, mostly in a valley or mostly in a lowland. Obviously, it's a feminine place. No, is the waterfall, and also the place in which a delta begins. Number four is the dam, or is if you're thinking about a mountain or a formation, it's like a mesa, an upper part that can hold. Have you seen all those Anasazi caves and Tarahumara caves?
Yes.
Those are number four. See, it's not the top of the mountain. It's not really a cave as such, a cave like just the entrance to the underworld. And they can hold human presence. That's number four.
And number five?
Number five, in this case, there will not be. Number five is not usually used as a place for going to ceremony. Number six is the cave, especially if it's kind of a round, kind of a long distance, same as what has been found in the archaeological research of the caves that goes down into the entrance, into the bottom of the mountain or the pyramid.
Let me ask you this: if the cave is at the bottom of,
sometimes.
But if it contains no river?
No, well, there's no necessities. That's number six.
Okay.
For example, in Teotihuacan has been found this big cave that goes to the middle of or to the bottom of the pyramid. That's number six. Same as Cumarcaj in Quiché, Guatemala. That is the Mamco Shoals cave that goes down to the basement of the hills pyramid or place.
So many questions, Jesus. That's too many.
There's number four and number six and some numbers that I'm going to hold. But
yeah,
number
that's
six
fine.
Is that.
That's fine.
That's number six. Number seven is the canyon, but especially when you are in the upper part and you can see rivers down there. So that could mostly be always number seven.
So then the Grand Canyon is the number seven.
Yeah.
Okay.
Canyon.
That's a big canyon. That's what I remember very well.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's also the Rarámuri or Tarahumara in Mexico, copper. Las Barrancas del Cobre, Copper Canyon. Oh, it's bigger than the Great Canyon, and it's so amazing.
It's bigger.
Yeah, it's bigger.
What? I didn't know. I thought the biggest canyon in the world.
No. Copper Canyon in Chihuahua, Mexico, is bigger than the Grand Canyon. Is that big that in the bottom part you can find subtropical weather, while in the upper part you can find a cold weather. Sometimes it can be snowing in the upper part, and in the bottom part you can feel this kind of a jungle.
Wow. I'll have to take a look on Google.
And everything in the bottom.
Okay, so then that's a new thing for me. Number seven, I'll look for canyons, and it's better in the upper place to see the canyon.
Yeah, now we have to go to number nine. That is once again to descend. Is when you go to the to the water places that is inside the world. Just the world.
Yeah.
Like the inner rivers.
Inner rivers, yeah. Sure. Okay. And number 10 is not a place, or is it up like 11?
No, well, what happens with number 10 is that it's mostly when you're not in the upper part.
Okay.
And sometimes there are places in which there are formations, as, for example, I'm remembering, I'm going to tell you a couple of examples that is very funny. One of them is Campana Abaj. It is a formation of stones that looks like a campana, like a bell stone.
Okay.
And it's not in the upper part. It's in the middle. It's not a cave. It's not a big mountain. It's not a one single piece of stone, and it is not a volcano. So number 10 is also usually applied to those places in which you can find, in the mountains, you can find some special features like bells, stones.
Similar to the number 12, but number 12 is one stone, one big piece.
One big
Whereas
stone.
number
Peña
10
de Bernal in Mexico.
doesn't. I'm sorry, what's the name?
Peña de Bernal in Mexico. That's a huge mountain. You can see it in the distance. It's so amazing, so impressive. That is the second one piece stone mountain. The number one is in Australia. That is this very big one solid piece of stone. I don't remember the name in this moment, but it's the number one is in Australia.
Is it
number two?
Uluru?
I think so.
That's, yeah, not many famous mountains in Australia. So
Yeah.
it's the only one I can remember.
It's a big, huge one single
So
piece
this
of
is
stone.
number 12 rather than number 4.
Yeah, but that one does not hold. Remember, one of the keys is that in the upper part, when they hold human presence, is number 4.
Does it have to be human? Could it be animals or?
Yeah, well, no, it's mostly in this case about humans, in this living or dead humans, because sometimes there are places in which some sorts of formations that is not caves, but that can hold also cemeteries.
I see. Okay, so the important part is holding.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I'm just sort of understanding number 10 because I'm going to look for it when I'm walking in the mountains, which could be number 10. And which is fun. Anybody who's listening to this, go out and try and,
Is rock formations, especially features that look like something related to the world, as the Bella Bach, Campana Bach, that is the bell stone. And the key is, it's not a big mountain, it's not in the top, it's not a volcano, it's not one single piece of rock.
Okay.
So it's a formation in a big mountain. But
okay, I have two very.
No, there's one famous.
Yeah.
There's one. I'm going to tell you something. Maybe I can send you the picture when I found it. But there's a stone that was discovered more or less recently, close to the Atitlan Lake that you mentioned before, and it's very very peculiar because it's called telephone stone.
Okay.
This is telephone stone because it looks like a cellular phone.
It's modern. Wow, that's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, it's not that big. It's not that old. Sorry.
Right.
It's no more than 20 years, maybe 15 years. And it's a beautiful, precious, one solid piece of stone that was discovered after there was this big layer in the woods, and all some of the trees fall and everything, so they have to clean the area, and when they clean, they found this beautiful one single piece of a stone that looks like a cellular phone. And it's called, and obviously immediately it was placed an altar in the bottom, and now it's called
Somebody put an altar in the bottom? Oh, because
and obviously it's thought of a place to talk.
That's so funny. Oh, right, it's a place to send messages, obviously. Texting the gods, eh?
More kind of it's not. It's one of the most amazing stuff because it's also a very recent, let's say, discovery of.
That's a very great story because it shows the living culture.
Yeah, I'm looking for it now. So I have a couple of pictures that I took because I was also very very surprised about these beautiful stone. I found some caves and everything.
I wanted to say there's two formations that stand out to me. One, all of the rocks looks like a bee's honeycomb. You know, it's all.
Oh yeah.
So this could be.
That is close to the sea.
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken.
So it's not a number 10 then.
No, it's close to the sea, and even the sea is close to them. That's number 1 also.
Why? Because the sea is number 1?
Yeah, it's in the water, and it's so close to the water, and it's in the bottom of a valley.
I see.
That is a beautiful formation. That's
sure it is, but see, this again helps me to understand how to look at something and read the Nawal that's there. So if I see a rock formation which is low and near the sea, then it has a lower number.
Yeah, because it's close to the water, and especially in this case that you are mentioned, they are bathed by the sea. So it's more than obvious. This is number 1 also as a spring.
Okay, well, see, for me it's not more than obvious. So it's good to right seriously.
Well, now that I mentioned,
yeah. Well, of course, yeah. If you say it in that way, yes, I can understand it. But I'm still learning, so I don't know. So then the other one that I thought was, I don't know if you saw this in China. There is some mountains called the Avatar Mountains. It's from the movie Avatar. And
those beautiful formation bottom. Yeah.
Yep. So is this a number 10?
That could be a number 10, yes. But these beautiful formations, these beautiful mountains, there are several of them, right?
Yeah, ever so many.
Yeah, that could be a number 8, but it depends in the place in which you are going to do your ceremony. Because if it's a lake, you can do the ceremony in the water, so it's number 1. You can go to each or to one of the top mountains of all of them, as to say, and maybe it's precisely like number 11. Because they are not volcanoes, but maybe if you present an offering to all of the area because you want it, maybe you can do as number 8 finally. But it depends on what which is the place in which you will want to make an offering to the owner of the land or the place. Or
so then this is a very great thing to say because it brings in the idea of which way in which you're going to do the ceremony. So if you're talking to this place, then the number changes. If you're talking to that place, the number can change. And so this is again, a very interesting idea about how to read this thing. For example, I asked you this question about the Chinese mountains. Is it number 10 or is it number, and it depends on which way you do it. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, it will depend. Specifically what you're going to choose. Because talking about that special place, well, it could be for the water in the bottom. You can go to top in the mountain, and that could be in this case 11, for example. It depends on what you're going to do, but for general stuff, in the big picture of everything could be finally an 8, because you're going to try to cover everything.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I'm going to recover?
No, cover, to try to cover, to talk to the general area, or maybe just to give an offering.
Sure. Very, 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 very fascinating. I think one thing that I think will help people is like the idea that these Nawals or principles are around in nature and around the world, around you, every day, everywhere, and you can begin to look and see them. It's a very, very I hate to say it, fascinating cosmovision or worldview or way to see things, you know?
Well, what is important for us, especially for us Mayans, is that remember the number 1 observation. I think that talked before about this, that for us everything has a way of thought, everything has a way of expression, although maybe not human or not human based or not related to the human ways of expression. Thought, ya encontré. I found campana. I found telephone stone for you. I'm going to send it to you if you want to see.
Yeah, sure. I'll post it because we're in the internet world. Let's go. You know, we obviously need it with number 10.
I think I cannot send. Well, I can send it. I think I can send it here in same Skype.
Yeah, you could put it in Skype, or you can put it on Facebook or wherever. You know.
I have it. Now I'm going to send it right here. Maybe it's going to be a little bit slow because we are using precisely the internet, but okay, now you're going to get it in less than, I think, a couple of minutes to see the telephone back. So for me to know to be lying to you now, you got it.
I see.
So everything has a way of consciousness. Everything has a way of thought. Everything has a way of expression or communication. So for us now, the image has. So for us, the most important thing is that if everything is differentiated in that way, everything then has a different consciousness or a way of thought. So you have to acknowledge the identity of the owner of the place, the consciousness of the place. That's why we use first the numbers to try to understand the magnitude, as to say. As I said, I'm going to do a resume. Number 1, the spring. Number 3, the waterfall. Or number 4, it's something that holds human presence, living or dead.
I have to stop you with the number 2 because is it ever an important thing to do a ceremony on a number 2?
Related to water, yes. For example, in the dried wells, for example, you can choose a number 2 for not to retract, for to come back. But I think this is very complicated if I begin to explain, because number 5 is also very, very, because more than a specific place, number 2 and number 5, number 8 in a sense, are numbers difficult to explain. The other goes more easily, as I said. Number 1, the spring. Number 3, the waterfall. Number 4, the formation that can hold some presence, human. As for example, this Anasazi also had cemeteries in the canyons inside, like these mountains, right?
Yes.
Number 4 could be the dam, in the sense that holds the water, but also number 4 holds the living or the dead. Number 6 is the cave, especially when going down to the inside the world, the mother. Number 7 is more related to big canyons and doing in the cliff, the ceremony doing in the cliff. And number 8 is more related to something in the general big picture of a place. As for example, maybe you go to the Grand Canyon and you wanted to do it to all the Grand Canyon, right? Not the bottom, not the high parts, not the way cemeteries or whatever. Maybe you just want to, choose a number 8. Number 9 is the inner rivers of the world. Number 10 is special formations that occur or appears in mountains. Number 11 is the big mountains, the big mass-killing mountains, but not volcanoes. Number 12 should be the big one rock piece, big mountains. And number 13, the volcanoes, with obviously the warning of be aware that will be holding fire in the top part. So that's a way to recognize, at least by numbers, the nature of the place.
So this is the most fascinating thing about it for me, was that I could look at nature. I could just walk around the mountains and look at all the rocks and the trees and the this and the rivers and be able to see Nawals, numerical Nawals. This Nawal. And then when I approach a place like this, then I can almost see the owner like that. Like I couldn't see it before because I didn't have this word or this conception, scheme or whatever. But now all of a sudden, if I come to a cliff or something like that, I can see it from this perspective. This could be the place where number 7. And then when I go to the cliff, I can say, oh, hello, number 7, or whatever. So this is very, very fascinating.
Yeah, well, the question began in how to make a ceremonial circuit. So, you could begin with a spring, then to visit, and 2 days later to visit a waterfall. Then maybe if you want, next day the dam. Maybe if for the purpose of your entire global way of doing this spiritual circuit, you can choose a place for an 8, a special personal place. Then you can an 11, and you can go then to a bigger mountain on a 13, and you are doing 6 ceremonies, doing an ascension path. For example, I'm going to give you some my experience. I used to. When I was on Nawal in the highlands of Guatemala, there's a very old, very beautiful altar that is called Parrachon. Parrachon is the name of a bird that has these beautiful blue feathers. It's called the stone of this bird, Parrachon Apah, the stone of the beautiful feathers bird. That is number 1, and it's close to a river, and it's a beautiful, by the way, handmade altar. During years because it was very close to my teacher's house. It was very, very close, and it's always very calm and everything. And it was years. For my surprise, when I have to work on my own, by my own ways and everything, not with my teacher and dealing with the strangers even, I was working during 9 years in a cave. That was my cave. That was my house. I was the caveman. People, the kids sometimes believe that I was living over there. Well, and it was number 6, but I never went to the top of the mountain. That is the number 13. And by the way, in the place in which I was working, number 6, that is a cave, it's a volcano. And I was always like, well, one day I'm going to perform a ceremony over there. One day I'm going to perform gaining energy or this experience, being number 6 in the inside of the cave. Years later, I took the decision to finally go up and to perform a ceremony on number 13 in the top of the mountain. So that's a way in which the spiritual guide chooses places for the magnitude, altitude, or the big presence, or whatever. This is a cartography. This is a spiritual cartography.
That's right. That's the skill or the discussion that I wanted to bring in, because I've been wondering about this for years and years, and looking around and looking for clues and wondering about this. So for example, when you say 13, I'm thinking about Mount Fuji.
That's number 13, yeah.
It's really far from here.
Well, you left behind one question that is very important, and is, then what is a ceremony? And I was telling you, well, it has not to be something fixed or prefixed.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you there, because I learned one thing which I think is important for the attitude.
Well, as I told you, if everything is, if you're going to step there, you have to offer something. It's like the most proper and respectful way of dealing with someone. You're not going to enter anyone's house just to ask for food. Or, okay, or if you're going to enter to a concert, you have to pay the ticket, right? It's like
so this
Christian believing that the world is ours is false.
Right, of course. That's right.
You have to gain your presence in the nature or in the world. Well, what is better to do is to prepare something, especially and at purpose. Maybe you are, for example, maybe you go to the beach and your original plan was, let's say, maybe your original plan was to go to the beach, but then one day someone told you there's a beautiful place over there. There's a spring and there has been some Mayan ruins to be discovered. You will want, well, go and get a cigar, go and get a couple of something, go and get some flowers, and whenever you go, even if you're surrounded by hippies or by whatever, well, you can leave an offering. It's not going to hurt you. Make anything. Acknowledge the presence of the place, and the place is going to treat you beautifully. It's a concert. No, it's like acknowledgement and recognition of the other, right? So that's why if you are honest enough with you don't have to go with the special outfit and the black stuff with the golden stuff and the special painting or the special feather or the special watch and the golden neck collar if you want and to talk to the place. Well, that maybe it's important for you and you can do it, obviously, why not? But the most important part is the dialogue between consciousness. And there, especially if you are going to enter, especially if you are going to hunt in the mountain, especially if you will want to take a branch of a tree or hold to keep a stone or I don't know, maybe you are going to stay in the night. So you can add no danger, may there be no wild attack from a wild animal, may there be no bad surprise, may there be no robbery, may there be no assault, may there be no damage in my integrity. Things like that you can add, obviously. You're entering into the property of someone else.
Yeah, I believe that.
I always do it. I have had my experiences, and believe me, I have both the devotional way of doing stuff because there are some beautiful places that I have been invited to be in or to go into, and at the same time, I love to do it. I love to it's something that now I love to do, right? I have been making my own circuit of geographical or spiritual development. I go to lakes, I go to caves, I go to top mountains, and I sometimes I return. So I do also for the pleasure to return to a beautiful place and to be received. Obviously.
Yeah, I think a good title for this is spiritual topography.
Una cartografía espiritual dentro de un nodo calendárico. That it means that you are weaving time or by doing a scheduled time, choosing the days, the numbers specifically, you are doing a weaving the place and the day and the ascending purpose, because mostly it's always from 1 to 13 to make it sacred, as to say, to ascend. That's why it's not only like a way of making just offerings, but also to ascend, to enlighten yourself by acknowledging the nature and to receive their messages, because they talk to you. They can talk to you.
So you could choose some calendarical nodes for a specific purpose, or is it specifically for each person, or is there something that's common?
No, well, you can, for example, let's say that you said, I live in a house, as you said. There's a valley. I know a spring, then I know a waterfall, but also a dam, but there's also the top mountain. So you have number 1, number 3, number 4, and number 11. If you do it in one single trecena, returning back to home, I think, for example, then you're doing your first spiritual circuit. And then my recommendation is just to go, give an offering, stay a time over there, feel the energy, feel the surroundings, be aware of what's happening while you are there, feel yourself. How do you treat yourself also is important. And if you are a healer, how you treat yourself, then return home. Then in a trecena you have 4 visitations. Then, for example, if you feel that someone asks you for healing, or that this person needs something from you, you can do that. You can go with them and make the same spiritual rounding of the spiritual cartography or topography, as you said, to make the healings. In this case, in a trecena, is 4 healings following a ceremony. For example, and it is something that you can do. That is a planification, let's say, of ascending for healing, or to visit places for healing.
Something I'm going to have to think about for a little while. But thank you for that. That's very. I'll try that. I'll definitely try that, and I'll let you know how it goes.
For example, in my own experience, we were always making a ceremony in the inner altar that is called Akabal, the place of resting of the ancestors, inside the house of my teacher, for example. And I remember that to be a beautiful moment. And this is not an exaggeration. He was always asking us, especially me, that he was spoiling me in everything at the beginning, to go to the mountain. So every day we were at no less than 4 o'clock in the morning. We were already ascending to the top mountain and performing a ceremony. Then we go down, have a breakfast, and then we climb up back once again. then with the remaining of my Western mind, I was like, "Oh, teacher, why don't we carry everything, everything, and we do 6 ceremonies instead of going back and down?" Because it was like very exhausting, climbing the mountain 3 times, 4 times a day. And he was like very clear about this. And he says, "This is for you. This is your preparation. This is the way in which you are going to get the spiritual and physical strength to sustain your work. So don't complain about this. Me is the one that is suffering because of this."
Sounds like a crazy old man.
He had not the necessity, right? But he was doing that for me.
I see. It actually reminds me of like old kung fu.
No, well, I told you this in in another podcast that some of the things has changed so much, because in my time, and I think about this, we were even begging for knowledge. We have to. I have to cut the wood, and I have to go to pick up branches. I have to go to pick up branches in top of trees. I have to go for water. I have to carry stuff. I have to do all the efforts to gain the knowledge, and to, for example, knocking the door and being a couple of hours outside the house, and there could be the possibility for me to the door to not to be open. I was fortunate that I pertained to those times in which you the knowledge, you gained the knowledge, and they didn't tell you anything. They tell you, well, you are going to receive your answer in a dream, stuff like that. And I'm happy because of that, because although I didn't, let's say, I wasn't that convinced in that moment that could be possible, in reality it was a reality for me. But now, with the cellular phone and the internet in the mountains and everything, now you have to look for the apprentices. Now you have almost to... you have to convince them to continue. You have to give them reasons.
Part of the zeitgeist of the time, like that's what's happening now, you know? Maybe that's okay. Like, it's time for this to open to the world, because it never really has before.
Well, yes.
You know, and that's exciting. That's really positive, you know? I think.
Yeah, well,
could be.
Yes, I understand. Well, that's obviously there's too many new challenges. For example, in some places the traditional cofradia that is between Catholic and between traditional has been gaining strength, because they still participate in the syncretic ways of doing stuff, blending, holding, or using the external symbols. But whenever a tradition goes that orthodox, sometimes they enter into a big drama and problem. So well, there are too many new challenges that people have to face, and this is one of those. And I tell you, there was a time in which I had to beg for. I have to make this stuff going back and up to the mountain to gain my circuit from 1 to 13, to know it, to acknowledge, to feel it, to sense it, to carry it in the body. But as I told you, now for example, I have no. But for example, now in the new ways. Now you have to look for the apprenticeship for the apprentices. So sad, but things have changed. You say something like, we used to be, for example, we used to be punished. We used to be with the belt, you know. We used to be scolded, and we have to do the yes, teacher, yes, for example, yes, that, I hate that. Something like that. Now you do that, then the police come for you. Then this man is going to go to the police, and then you are going to be arrested later. So now it's not the same as it was before. But I don't know if it's good or bad or what or what it is. But that's an idea.
Yeah, that reminds me of an old like kung fu master type situation where he is the master and apprentices, and he's sort of an abusive, alcoholic old guy.
Well, I know about that, but my first teacher was very severe, and believe me, it was one of the most amazing persons ever, because he was very knowledgeable. He was the person you want to learn, but he was accustomed to the old ways. As I told you, he wake me up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the cornfield to go to pick up some herbs for to have some teas at 4 o'clock, and to climb to the mountain at 4:30, for example. And I used to carry the stuff, the materials, and everything. And I wasn't angry about that. By the way, it was one of the most happy and beautiful moments ever, obviously. But now, now I learned that way, but I cannot teach by that way.
I see.
To my next generation. I'm not going to, as I told you, I will knock the door at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, andate la chingada, boludo. There's not going to be a good response to me.
Yeah, I'm still awake. I didn't go to bed yet.
Yeah. But well, things change, as I said, and now there's going to be a new dynamics to preserve knowledge and to continue. But by the way, following the beginning of what these questions were, you can start let's say ceremonial circuit to do stuff, beginning with number 13 for healing, enlightenment, gaining your presence in the world, or for recognizing the spiritual cartography or topography that you are surrounded with.
I have a question. My Mayan birthday is coming soon. No?
Well, you can choose one of them, or you can go to choose or to same number, same place.
So, is there anything special or different that people do according to their own birth Nawal, during the ceremonial circuit?
Well, it depends. It depends on what you want to do. For example, you can go and choose your number or a special place or a special shrine to go and to do your stuff in your birthday. That's in the Mayan, especially birthday. So, but it's a choose. But sometimes, for example, for the purpose of preparation, gaining knowledge, asking for an answer, asking for a pardon, asking for a let's say, for example, to have more skills to heal, then you can do a ceremonial circuit, beginning from one and going ascending. It's not that common now. It's not that people would want to do it now, but that's a way to resolve stuff, to do a circuit. A spiritual circuit to go and resolve your stuff in the spiritual way.
Maybe the last question, this will be my last question about this ceremonial circuit, is there any specific days that are important nodes that you should pay attention to?
Well, number 1, number 6, and number 8. Sometimes 1, 6, and 13, for example. They say one ceremony in the bottom part, one ceremony in the middle, and one in the top. Good, beautiful. But it depends on what you want. It depends on what your consciousness or your way of thought are directed to. So you choose the place. And it could be also earth to recognize your presence. The key point is to acknowledge the presence or the consciousness of the other, the owner of the place, if you wanted to call it like that. Not the owner, but the place. In a most common way to say the energy of the place. And to offer something for the dialogue, and then to stay there or to do whatever you want. But you have to explain. You have to talk. You cannot, as I said, you cannot enter into anyone's house just to do whatever you want. So it goes more or less in the same way.
Man, that's the quote of the day, actually. I'll quote you on that in the description of this video. You can.
Yeah.
That summarizes everything. That's really great. Yeah.
At least you have to gain presence, right?
That's one of the 7 Mayan laws.
Yeah, that could be the number 8 or the first amendment.
Explains everything.
Yeah, the first adjustment of the first of the observation, you have to pay respect for to be respected. Also, it goes both ways.
Wow, that's the second principle, I think, is if you want to be respected also. First, don't, second, because of course we want respect. We want power, respect. Everybody does. It's good, It's good shit. Respect. That's what I want. That's what I'm after in my life.
Yes, you have to pay that respect. You have to you're going to be respected in the same. If you respect, you are going to be respected. That's obvious. And it is the same. Although, for example, you can also do we can also do the same. This an additional observation is like it's not necessary for you to see the owner, but the place has an energy, has a consciousness.
All right. Well, I think as far as the episode goes, that's pretty good.
Well, we need to schedule. We can do it by Facebook then to see which date we can be available, right?
All right, yeah, that sounds good. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Well, have a nice day. Chapek chick. See you later.